Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to talk to you about my next project, as well as to give you a first look at the lenses that will be a part of this project. And specifically, I'm going to be looking at the kind of primary 50mm options for Sony full-frame mirrorless, or Sony FE. And so that includes the, Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8. We've got a small, medium, large option here. Maybe Goldilocks and the Three Bears scenario, perhaps. And then we have the outsider here, which is the Samyang or Rokinon, and this is a 50mm f1.4. And then we have the kind of king here, and that is the Zeiss, the Sony Zeiss, and this is the 50mm f1.4. And so we have two different kind of Zeiss optical designs, including a Sonnar design and then a Planar design. And so we're going to take a look at specifications of these today. But before I jump into that, I do want to just let you know that I recognize that a lot of you that are regular subscribers to my channel are, primarily Canon shooters and are here mostly for Canon reviews. And I want you to rest assured that I am in no way moving away from doing Canon reviews. We're in a little bit of a lull here for recent Canon releases, and so I do want you to know I have scheduled, as soon as it comes in stock, I have the new Canon tilt shift 50mm f2.8 L series lens that is scheduled to ship to me as soon as there is stock of it, and I'll be taking a look at that. And then also I've already had conversations with Sigma about the new 14 to 24mm f2.8 art lens, and so when that is available, I'll also be reviewing that in a Canon EF mount. And so I do have more Canon reviews that are coming your way. In the meantime, however, what I wanted to do is a kind of approach where I think a lot of people that perhaps have made the move to Sony are. And I personally am interested in a 50mm-ish lens for my new Sony a7R Mark III. And so what is the best of these options? And so today I'm going to be beginning a multi-part kind of showdown, 50mm-ish showdown between these three lenses to see what offers the best bang for your buck. And let's just start right there, looking at the buck end of things. So at the moment, I'm using the prices. This is Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2018. So I'm using the prices as of today at B&H Photo, of which all three of these lenses are $100 off. And so, they're all kind of at a level playing field. And so it's a pretty broad range of price points here. We go from the Samyang or Rokinon 50mm f1.4, and it is a pretty inexpensive option relatively at $599. Next, we have the tiny, relatively tiny 55mm f1.8. And I recognize that it's not exact in terms of focal length or in maximum aperture, but this is a lens that a lot of people debate back and forth in regards to. And so the 55mm f1.8 is the medium-priced lens at $898. And so then at the top of the heap, we have the Sony 50mm f1.4, which is around $1,400. And so a pretty huge variation of price, with the most expensive option being twice as expensive as the least expensive option. Now, to further compare other things, obviously you can tell looking at a physical comparison that the 55mm f1.8 is much, much smaller than the alternative lenses. And in fact, it weighs a pretty light 9.91 ounces or 281 grams. And so, that's a nice light alternative. And taking a quick look at it, it has a beautiful finish. It feels like a metal body around a metal lens mount. There is no weather sealing that I can tell of here, but the lens itself is beautifully designed. It's got a very nice feeling focus ring. I just like the overall aesthetic of the lens, in general. Looking at the front of the lens, it looks very much like a Zeiss type lens, other than the fact that the cap here is Sony, and there is some Sony branding on it here. And of course, it comes with a lens hood. The lens hood itself it's not so much flocked. It has kind of a matte interior design to prevent light from stretching around. And so it is basically 2.5 inches in diameter by 2 3/4 inches in length. And so that's 64.4 millimeters by 70.5 millimeters. And so just gives you a look at the overall dimensions of that. Optical formula here is 7 elements in 5 groups. It has 9 rounded aperture blades. It also has the longest minimum focus distance of any of these lenses at 1.64 inches or 50 centimeters. And so it has, as a result, it has the smallest magnification ratio figure, even though it has the longest focal length. So it's 0.14 times, or a 1 to 7.1 reproduction ratio there. And so there is no image stabilization in this lens. However, there's no built-in image stabilization in all of them. Of course, all of them benefit from the fact that, Sony, in a lot of the A7R bodies, it has a built-in in-body image stabilization. So they all end up stabilized, but there is no internal stabilization if you happen to own a body that does not have any kind of stabilization. And so, very nice built lens and a very attractive size, which is the reason why this one is very popular also with those that shoot APS-C, like the A6300 or A6500. Now, in terms of our medium size and dimension, we have the Samyang lens, which, frankly, it feels really although it's lighter than the big guy here from Sony/Zeiss, it has a beautiful, beautiful build and design. I mean, it looks just as nice as the other two. Same kind of anodized metal body on it. It feels like a premium lens. I like the look of the accent ring here. The knurled focus ring feels nice. All of these, of course, are focused by wire. And so, it's just the nature of the beast here. And so the focus ring, there's no mechanical hard stop there. So anyway, it's a nice lens. I'm not seeing any evidence of any kind of weather sealing here. And of course, as already noted, there is no image stabilization. It terminates up front in a 67 millimeter front filter thread, and the lens itself is what I would consider a moderately sized lens. It is 2.89 inches in diameter by 3.85 inches in length. That's 73.5 millimeters by basically right at 98 millimeters. And so, as I said, it's moderately sized in terms of physical dimensions. It's not light. It weighs in at 1.29 pounds or 585 grams. And the fact that it's only a moderately sized lens, it has a certain amount of density to it that shows the high grade of the build quality here. Now, this actually sports a similar reproduction ratio, identical in fact to that of the more expensive Sony here, and it can focus down similar distance, 45 centimeters or 1.48 inches, and has a 0.15 times magnification. That is a 1 to 6.67 magnification or reproduction ratio. This has 9 elements in 8 groups compared to 7 elements in 5 groups compared to 12 elements in 9 groups. And so the big Sony is the most optically complex. And so moving on to the Sony, it really has a lot of heft to it. It feels very much like a premium lens, and like all of these have a nice build grade to it. Something about the heft of this lens makes it feel like very much a pro grade lens. Of the lenses that I've looked at, this is the only one that I feel like has some kind of internal gasket and moisture resistance there. It also has a few other features that set it apart. Some nice things. Number one, it does have an AF/MF switch that will allow you to automatically set the to turn off rather than having to go into camera. So if you want to switch to manual focus, you can actually do that on the fly, which I always like. It's a nice option there. But it also gives you the option here of switching between an automatic aperture iris, or you can also move into a manual aperture iris. And so, kind of a nice addition because, for one thing, it extends the longevity of the lens. And you also have an option here on the side. There is a button that allows you to declick that aperture. And so in the declicked mode, you can go with a smooth aperture rack. And for those of you that shoot video, that can be a pretty huge feature right there. Now, somewhat surprisingly for being a focus-by-wire lens, the damping on the focus ring feels really heavy by comparison with the other two options. The little 55mm f1.8, it has a nice weighted action, and the 50mm f1.4 Samyang, it action feels almost a little bit too light. And so this, by comparison, feels really heavy. And so just in terms of basic feel, I think I like the feel of the 55mm f1.8 lens the best of the bunch. And so another thing to note about the kind of the build here that separates it from these other two is that it actually has 11 rounded aperture blades, which you can see even when stopped down creates a very circular aperture iris. So it should produce very nice bokeh quality in terms of the roundness of the bokeh highlights when you stop the lens down. It is the most optically complex at 12 elements in 9 groups, and it has the largest front filter thread, 72 millimeters. It is also the physically largest lens here. It's 3.29 inches in diameter, and it is a full 4¼ inches long. That's without the lens hood there. And so that means that that translates into metric as 83.5 millimeters by 108 millimeters overall. And so it certainly is physically, it's quite a large lens, and it's 1.71 pounds or 778 grams. So, I mean, it's definitely on the heavier end of what you would like on a smaller mirrorless body, even the A7R Mark III. It certainly is a fairly large and heavy mount because a lot of that weight is towards the front of the lens. And so I think you're going to find that it has maybe the poorest balance of all these lenses on the mount, unless you happen to have a battery grip attached to your camera body to help to give it a little bit more heft. And so there you have a look at the physical design of these lenses, and we'll be looking more in depth now at the image quality. Now, the two Sony lenses, they come with a pouch like this, which accompanies a lot of their premium kind of lenses, and it's kind of a leatherette with a padded body. The one that comes with the Samyang is more of just like a bag that has kind of almost like this quilted type material, and it's more like a few layers. And there's nothing really on the bottom. These ones have quite a thick padding here on the bottom, probably about a ½ inch thick. There's really no additional padding here on the bottom, and so don't plan on much of any kind of protection value for this. And I would recommend, if you really want some protection value, that you take a look at the lens pouch or lens case for it, and I'll throw some links to appropriately sized ones down in the description down below. I'm Dustin Abbott, and if you'll stay tuned, look in the description. I will have an image gallery where I'll be adding images from all 3 of these lenses. I'll shoot them on both the A7R Mark III and the A6500, both of which I own, and so you can see how they handle on both full frame and, of course, on APS-C. And I'll do a number of comparisons and chime in if there's something in particular that you've been looking for in the comments down below in terms of something you really want to see tested, or perhaps you've heard is an issue with one of these lenses, and I'll do my best, within time constraints, to evaluate those things and bring you a report on them. I'll look at them for video performance, stills performance, all of those things, and bring you back some ongoing coverage of that. Of course, you can also follow me there on social media and become one of my patrons. And if you haven't already clicked that subscribe button, please do so. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.